Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, and welcome once again to the Self-Improvement Basis for Community Development Talk Show. I'm your weekly host, Brother James Muhammad. I'm honored to have on the show this afternoon from the city of Chicago, Brother Student Minister Abdul Muhammad, who's one of our student ministers under the leadership of the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for having me.
Brother, this afternoon we'd like to discuss a study guide prepared by the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan titled A New Educational Paradigm for the 21st Century. I'd like to read a quote to you from that study guide.
Yes, sir.
Under Put God First. Truth and proper education starts with the knowledge of God, and yet God is taken out of the schools. It is ridiculous that the school day does not begin with prayer. God is the author of all knowledge, so why should he be taken out of the school? Brother, what is the effect when you remove God from the educational system?
That's a good question. The effect of removing God from the educational system would be the same effect as removing the light of the sun from the solar system. So if we remove the light of the sun, then the life that is on Earth and throughout this solar system would all die. We would not have the energy, the electricity that powers all the things that we use, because that comes from sunlight. So without that sunlight, then the life as we know it would come to an end. So the same is true in the educational system. Without that knowledge, which is represented by light, without that light, which the source of is God, then you see the death of the educational institutions in not just the United States of America, but in the world. The reason that God was removed from the educational institutions is so that the educators could set themselves up as a God beside God. If the headmaster is gone, then they could stand in the place of the headmaster, so that the student would look at them as the source of knowledge, but looking to them as the source of knowledge limits them in their growth in knowledge. But if God, whose knowledge is unlimited, then if you look to God as your source of knowledge, then that means your growth in knowledge can also be unlimited. So removing God from the educational system is like removing the oxygen from the room we're sitting in right now. So if the oxygen is removed, then you'll see people start to pass out, right? People start to faint. And if oxygen is not put in the room, then in time, what's going to happen? We're all going to die. So what do we see in the educational institutions of the United States of America? We see not physical death, even though we see that, but we see a mental death first, and then that mental death leads to a physical death. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in the book, The Fall of America, that that education is the foundation of a civilization. So when you see people rebelling against the education, what they're really rebelling against is the civilization. So because people have been killed mentally in these educational institutions, because the educational institutions have separated themselves from God, so now you see that mental death, and now you see guns being brought into school. You see bombs being brought into school. The same violence you see in the street, you see that in the school. That is because it's an education that has separated itself from the source of all knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, which is Almighty God.
Okay, thank you, my brother. Now, you work in the school system.
Yes, sir.
What inspired you to get into the field of education?
The thing that inspired me to get into the field of education is becoming a follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. When I came to college, I was going to major in business management, and only because, my friend, what you majoring in? Business management. What you majoring in? Business management.
Trying to get math. Huh?
Right. So I'm majoring in business management too. And I came in the Nation of Islam as a freshman in college. And the brother who was my minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Abdul Rashid Muhammad, he gave me the opportunity to speak on the rostrum one Sunday. And, I enjoyed it. And so he gave me more opportunities. And, I became the student representative at Southern University of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But I enjoyed teaching so much that I went to my counselor or my advisor, and I changed my major from business management to education, because I was inspired by the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. See, whenever you're given real knowledge pulls out what God put within. I never thought ever that I would be a teacher. You talk to my former teachers, and they probably are like, nah, he ain't gonna be no teacher. Because I was hard on teachers. So I never thought I would be a teacher. But that was something, a gift that God put within. See, this is why you have to have God in education, because God is the granter of gifts and talents. God gives us gifts. What knowledge is supposed to do, the word educate comes from the Latin root, which means to bring forth. The prefix E means to bring out, right? So if you're evicted, then you're brought out of something, right? Onto the street. If a volcano erupts, then the lava is brought out of the volcano. So if a person is truly educated, then the gifts and the talents are brought out of the individual with knowledge. You follow me? So what the teachings of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did, or the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under his leadership, it brought out of me a gift that I didn't even know I had. So I became an educator because I was inspired by the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And when I started teaching in Chicago public schools, in 4 years, I won the Teacher of the Year award for the city of Chicago. So now this is a gift that was within that I didn't know was there. That being taught from a man that was taught by God brought that out of me. And a person who won the teacher award with me, he had been teaching 30 years. And he won, but it took him 30 years to win. So what took him 30 years to win took me 4, because I had the knowledge and wisdom that's given to us from God through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So that was what caused me to want to get an education.
Thank you. For those who are just now tuning in to the Self-Improvement Basis for Community Development talk show, I'm sitting here with my brother Abdul, Minister Abdul Muhammad from Chicago, who's one of the representatives of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We're discussing a study guide number 21, a new educational paradigm.
Yes,
so, brother, now as you were saying, I was thinking, if we take God out of the school system, it has an effect. But what is the particular effect that it has on the African American community?
Well, you know, the nature of black people is the nature of God himself. So what is the effect of taking a lion and putting him in a circus from a baby, right? Putting him in a circus and letting him grow up under the circus trainer, and the man comes out, right, with that lion, you know, the punk lion, and he got a little stick in his hand and he smacks him, and then the punk lion jumps through the hoop, rolls over, right, gets up on his hind legs, does whatever the trainer wants the lion to do. That is a lion that is not in accord with its nature. Anytime we're not in accord with our nature, then we do not have the power that God grants us when we're in accord with our nature. So, to give you an example, the lion that's in the circus does not have any power. You can put 5 lions that grew up in the circus in a cage with one man with one stick in his hand. And that one man, because those lions are not in accord with their nature, then that one man can control all 5 lions. But you take that same man and you put him in the savannah of Africa with 5 lions that are in accord with their nature, and give him a stick or a gun or a knife or all 3. And that man will not survive with lions that are in accord with their nature. So when you take the black man and the black woman whose nature is God, the Holy Quran says that the nature of man and the nature of God is the same, right? So if you take the black man and woman whose nature is the same as the nature of God, and you remove them from their nature, you just remove their power from them. And the same way you control those 5 circus lions, you control the black man and woman. And so the educational system that we've been under has been a system that has educated us to be better servants and better slaves. So